Welcome to Playing Above the Line. We're a podcast that takes a peek into the daily lives of community and business leaders. Each week, we uncover different views of the path to growth, leadership, and achieving success. I'm Dennis Sheeran.
And I'm Alan Cave. Dennis and I are both shareholders at Hartman, Blackman & Kilgore. We're a full-service accounting and business consulting firm. As CPAs, we've had the unique opportunity to work with many different leaders and decided we wanted a way to share their incredible stories that we've learned along the way.
Today, we have a fellow Deep-Frier with us. Bradley Flowers is here, and he has a show called the Insurance Guys Podcast that is produced here at Deep-Frier Studios. A nationally recognized insurance agent and risk management expert, Bradley recently took a leap to start his own company called Portal Insurance.
Dennis, another day, another podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent, and we are very fortunate to have Bradley Flowers with us today with Portal Insurance. Brad, go by Brad or Bradley?
Either one.
How formal are we going to be here?
Either one, man.
I'm going to go with Brad. How about that? Brad, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing these days.
I've been in the insurance industry since 2011. Since 2013, have been highly building my brand online through social media and Google, different things like that. Since about 2014, probably 98% of my business, I basically built my business on social media, which is a lot of people can say, but not a lot of insurance agencies can say.
Yeah.
And the agency I was running since 2013 for the last 5 years, I recently left. The insurance industry is extraordinarily not customer-centric. And I chose to basically flip the script and start my own agency January of this year, or technically March of this year. Most businesses and insurance agencies are built from the inside out. In other words, these are our processes. Our customers are going to get used to it. We're the opposite. We're built from the outside in. So we start with the customer and work our way backwards into our processes from a business standpoint. And then additionally, I host a podcast as well. So
I think that's where we first were exposed to you because we recorded in the same studio, and Johnny was telling us about these guys that had an insurance podcast. So you're one of them. So we appreciate you joining us on our little adventure here.
You should have seen Johnny's face when I pitched him an insurance podcast for the first time. He's like, okay.
That's probably not the thing that probably jumps out at you as your first, go-to for podcasts, right? But
well, and we had two things. We were either going to do a customer-facing or an industry-facing. And the reason, obviously, the selfish short-term thinking would have been customer-facing to try to get some business from it.
Sure.
But we decided that we didn't want Ambien to sue us. So we decided to go industry-facing as to pick up a little bit more of an audience, and it's turned out to be the right move.
I love the success story that you guys had. You got a lot of downloads. You got a lot of interactive listeners there.
I'll tell you, every good thing business-wise that's happened to me in the last 2 years is a direct result of the podcast. Literally. It can all be traced back to that.
And we're kind of jumping ahead to the most recent, things that have happened. But you guys interviewed Gary V.
We did.
Last week or week before.
We went up to New York and interviewed him in his studio.
So how was that?
It was amazing. It still doesn't seem real. I mean, he was the guy, when I say I started putting myself out on social media and building my brand in 2013, it was because of him. So he kind of kicked there. It wasn't like that. It's not that this guy is just an influencer in the world and we chose to interview him. It's like I truly believe in everything he talks about. And I'd originally met him in 2016 at a conference. And then from the podcast last year, got asked to speak at Agent 2021 this year, which is Gary's conference, and it's an insurance, real estate, mortgage, and car sales conference for the industries that are the most behind. I mean, I can name 50 people off the top of my head right now that deserve that before me, but that was a direct result of the podcast, and through that, we actually, Scott Tyndall and myself hosted the Senior Bowl Summit here in Mobile, which he came to. I'm able to kind of get, not in his circle, but kind of know who to reach out to, so it allowed us to get in front of the right people to make the correct moves to have him on. So if you polled every business podcast who they want to interview, most of them are going to say him. So it seems kind of surreal. And we're literally, the episode dropped today, and I think we're going to surpass our best day ever in downloads by 11 o'clock.
That's great. Congratulations. So take it a little deeper in there.
Yeah.
What was the actual experience of being there talking with him?
He looks you in the eye when he talks to you. When he walked in that room, that we had 10 people with us. They told me I could bring as many people as we could fit in the room.
So you brought 10.
Literally, we had a crew.
Well, let me ask you real quick before you get into this. For people who don't know, who's Gary V?
So Gary V he owns a company called VaynerMedia, which is one of the top advertising agencies in the world when it comes to digital marketing, social media. He hosts a show called Ask Gary V Show on YouTube. It's probably one of the top podcasts in the world. Best in Facebook, Uber, things like that. Super rich dude. He's a huge influencer in the business industry. He signed a 10-book publishing deal with a publisher to write 10 business books before he'd ever written a book. And if you follow any authors, like guys like John Maxwell haven't done that. Like, that's reserved for the guys who are on the tail end of their career almost. He's very influential, and so that's who he is. But, going into the interview, we had two objectives. We wanted to ask questions that we didn't already know the answer to. So there's certain things that people will ask him, and it's like, oh my God, I've heard him say that, over and over and over. And that's a very hard thing to do, because one thing Gary does is Gary has a camera on him 24/7 to film his vlog, basically, reality show. And the other thing we tried to do is, it would be very easy for us to go in there and ask selfish questions that we wanted to know, but we wanted to ask questions that our audience would want to know. So we literally sat down 3 times and came up with questions, which we never do. And if the questions didn't meet those 2 criteria, it got thrown out. So I feel like we accomplished that. I mean, several times he said, I've never said this before. He's touched on the insurance industry before, but he's never deep dove. And, a few of the questions like, hey, if you're running Vayner Insurance, what does that look like? Okay, well, no, take us a little bit. Like, what's, that agency up there, they got 1,000 people that work there. The energy is unbelievable. If you're familiar with the Dwayne Wade video that just came out at the retirement, they did that.
Right. Okay.
And they're working on advertising campaigns for Toyota and Pepsi and companies like that. So it's amazing.
It's probably going to be hard, but what was your one takeaway? Whether it was what he said or the impact that he had on you and your gripping, what was the one thing that you're going to say?
So there are 2 things. One, he dropped a quote where he said, the big thing in every industry, but especially the insurance industry now, a lot of agents are struggling with, do I market XYZ insurance carrier because it would be easier and it's going to get me short-term business because everybody knows, or do I market Bradley Flowers insurance agency? And I know what I want to do. I want to market Portal Insurance. I want people to come to me, And I kind of knew what he was going to say, but I knew that our audience would need to hear this. And basically, the quote he said verbatim was, when you are marketing something that you're not in control of, you are not in control. And so that kind of answered it, And so that was, one big thing is like, don't market the insurance company, because if your success is dependent upon something you don't have control of and they change the status quo, you're all of a sudden in trouble. Now you've got to pivot. The other thing is, when we asked him, how would you market your insurance agency differently? He said a couple things, but one of the things he said really stuck with me is that he would pay his people more of a percentage than what the normal status quo is in order to attract the best people. In other words, take a loss on the front end to then get the best agents. And so those from a tactical, we went very tactical, not philosophical, which people tend to go with him. And from a tactical standpoint, those were 2 things that really, but just like being around that guy, like that was the 4th time I'd been around him, and just being so like genuinely nice to everybody in the room is really overlooked nowadays. Kindness is a strength, not a weakness. And a lot of people need to know that.
That's a good story. I've listened to a couple of his books, and the first time I listened to one of his books, I had it at 1 1/4 speed, and so he comes across much different at 1 1/4 than he does at 1. But on the other side, let's talk a little bit more about Portal Insurance and talk about this decision you made to go on your own. Obviously, you've been working on your personal brand for a long time, but now doing the whole thing, running the business. Talk a little bit about that. What's the size of your team? And
we have 3 people now, including myself.
Okay.
We're about to bring on either 1 or 2 more. Most independent agencies, when they start as a one-man show.
Right.
And that one-man show is working out of an office about this size right here. And they grow till they get to be about $1 million or $2 million in premium on the books, and then they hire somebody. I did the opposite. I had 2 people day one.
Okay.
Like, I'm going to hire agents to work with me to try to scale. I'm basically going to take a loss.
Scale faster.
I'm going to take a loss for 2 years to try to scale it faster. And where we're really going to be dangerous is 2 years from now, when we're making money and I'm still not paying myself anything, and it's all going back into business to hire more people. And so that's kind of, from a hiring standpoint, that's kind of what we do. I encourage all of my people to build their personal brand, and I would argue with somebody to find another agency doing that. Most agencies, they don't want their people to build their own brand because they build leverage against the organization. My thing is, I believe in that. And also I know eventually they're going to realize they need to do that too. So if I'm the one helping them do that, then that mitigates the chances of me getting the raw end of that. You know what I mean? Well, Bradley really helped me build the brand, so I'm not going to use it against him. You know what I mean? We really encourage people to do that. Our internal purpose statement is we empower people through insurance. So that is our purpose as a team, is to empower as many people as we can through insurance. And what does that mean? Okay, I mean, that's all frou-frou and everything, but what does that mean, on a tangible level is, let's say I save you $1,000 on your insurance. That might empower you to go, okay, now I can afford those dance lessons for my daughter. Or let's say you paid $1,000 more, but you have a greater peace of mind. I can sleep better at night. And this is the big one for me is Chick-fil-A doesn't give good customer service. Chick-fil-A gives a good customer experience. Customer service is what happens when something goes wrong. Customer experience is what you're proactive about. And the big one for me with this is if we give somebody such a good customer experience that they got that warm and fuzzy feeling and they're empowered to then pass that energy, that kindness, that generosity, that gratitude on to someone else, that's the big one for me.
That's a great point. And let me ask you this. I'm a little bit curious because, you talked about the Gary V and the way that he interacted. And it's all about relationships, right? I mean, even accounting, it's relationships with clients and your employees, and the insurance business, it's all about relationships. So it's not really, at the end of the day, it's not really about numbers. It's about the interaction between people, right? So with Portal being 100% online, virtual, and that kind of thing, how do you keep that personal touch if you don't have
we're not 100% online.
Okay, so you have a physical location.
So my theory is insurance is going to be bought online. The agents need to be the ones to bring it there. Okay. So we have a physical location, but we do have that option. I have a chat bot on my website where it'll ask you all the questions you need to get a quote, but at the end of the day, there's an individual behind that.
Okay, that was my question, how do you keep that personal touch with, that makes sense.
We do. 99% of the stuff we do is over the phone, but we just build that relationship with the customer over the phone. And because we have the brand, they feel like they know us. You know what I mean? I run into people all the time that I've literally never set eyes on face to face, and they're like, "Man, I saw where you the other day, this lemonade stand." My daughter did a lemonade stand the other day. I've had a bunch of people say, "I saw her lemonade stand." I'm like, "We don't know each other, but you feel like you know me."
They're following,
But they're like, "Man, I feel like I know." And so I think that's how you do it in a 2019, 2020 world.
Makes perfect sense.
Some people disagree with me on this, including my wife, who's in the business as well. When you go to your attorney, you don't expect your attorney to explain every single law to you. You pay him or her, and you expect that they're acting in your best interest. That's kind of the approach that I take, in that I don't want to sit down and explain uninsured motorist coverage to you. I want you to have enough trust in me that you know that I'm acting in your best interest, and I'll just handle it. You don't have to come into my office and sit down if you want to, that's great. We'll accommodate that. But if you just want me to handle it, we'll handle it. We deal with a lot of new home purchases. They want to get closed on that house.
Right.
So it's like, hey, look, all you have to do is tell me you're going with me and I'll handle everything else. Like, really? Yep. So that's kind of the other side of the approach that we take. And a lot of your higher net worth individuals, that's what they want to do. They just want to have a guy or a girl that handles it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know both of you guys can speak to that.
Yes, we can speak to that as well. I mean, in our profession, we refer to it as a trusted advisor.
Right.
And they know that we have the expertise, just like you have the expertise to serve and take care of them. The personal branding thing, love it. Yeah. I love the idea of that, because you do build loyalty through providing that personal branding experience for your team. It's incredible. More people should acknowledge that, because in the end, the payoff will be tremendous. I got to ask, okay, got on your website, saw the video. What's your definition of success? I've got cheat sheet notes.
Yeah, I see that. I see that now.
But anyway, I watched the video and great stuff. Carrie and I were talking about it, our producer, and we were like, he never defined his success, but you did ask others and you told a story. So let's talk a little bit more. You
want to know what mine is?
Yeah, I do.
One of the hacks of social media, personal branding, whatever you want to call it, is always in the back of my brain, I'm thinking about how can I use this experience and turn it into something that will be valuable to my audience. And I was actually talking to a local salesperson for a local TV station here who was trying to sell me TV ads. And they were doing their fact-finding questions. And she said, what's your definition of success? And I'm pretty laid back right now, but during the day, I'm very like, I'm head down. One of my flaws is I can be short with people sometimes when I'm in that mode. I was just like not into this. I'm just like, just give me the price, anyway. And she's like, what's your definition of success? And I was just stumped. I was like, I don't really know. If you just Google Bradley Flowers' definition of success, that'll come up. But so I reached out to all my friends. It was like, what's your definition of success? And no two people said the same thing.
Exactly.
It's on a spectrum. I mean, it's
people in the insurance industry, out of the insurance industry, some people who are somewhat well known, some people who are not. Basically, my definition of success, I enjoy the game of business. The game. Not money. I'm not money motivated at all. When I get to the point financially that I can play the game of business just for the love of the game without regard for, if this doesn't work, I'm going to lose 20 grand. When I can do that, that to me is considered successful.
I like it. That's why I loved your video was the point. No one's success is equal. It's also
you got the point that wasn't said.
Yeah. And the other side of that, I wrote a blog that we published a few weeks ago. I had seen so many things on social media about these are the 7 things you must do to have success. No, that's not true. You define your own success. I define my success, and we're going to go about it different. There'll be similarities, but it's just what that video said.
Yeah. Hey, look, I might get tired of the insurance industry tomorrow and say, hey, I'm going to be a full-time podcaster, sell sponsorships, and make $2,000 a month. If I'm happy, that's successful. Really, it boils down to happiness. Really.
In that blog, I said the 3 most successful days of my life are the day I got married, the day my first son was born, and the day my second son was born. Nothing else can compare. Yeah. And to me, that is because it's that personal happiness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, and it helps to get people to think of success in terms of other than money, monetarily.
Right.
Because when it comes down to it, that shouldn't be your why. Really, as Simon Sinek says.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a result.
Making money is not your why. I mean, you got to come down to in your mind why you do what you do. Same thing with success. So,
there was some company, I can't think of the name right now. They did a poll of employees as order of importance to them, and money was 4.
Yeah,
wasn't even number 2. Number 1 was a purpose.
Right.
Yeah,
that's why Portal Insurance. Our purpose is, empower people through insurance.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
well, you flipped kind of the script on the insurance industry. Obviously, you're doing that with Portal. That's been up and going now for 6 months or so. What's your vision? What's your dream? If you look 2, 3, 4 years down the road, what do you want Portal to look like? What do you think Brad's going to be doing?
So kind of my plan with Portal and podcast too. I mean, the podcast has certainly made more of a wave in the industry than my agency has. But
and the podcast name is what?
The
now?
Insurance Guys Podcast.
All right, the Insurance Guys Podcast.
And the biggest compliment I get on the Insurance Guys Podcast is when I had one guy who was like, "Hey man, I love your." He was a local guy here, Chris Andrews. And he's like, man, I love your podcast. I'm like, great. What agency do you work for? He's like, I don't work for an agency. I run Bienville Bites Food Tour. And I'm like, he's like, every time you say insurance, I take that word out and I put my business in. So don't think because you're listening to this podcast that there's not gold there. But for me right now, obviously I'm doing some of the selling too. I'm in sales. I'm in production. Man has a plan and God laughs, but I have a plan. A year from now, I'm moving myself out of production and I'm going straight into operations. So I'm going to do the operations and the marketing. At that time, I'm going to sort of deep dive into commercial insurance as well. We do commercial now, but that's not the main thing I do, whereas that's going to be the only selling I do. A year after that, I'm moving myself out of operations and I'm hiring either a COO, office manager, whatever you want to call it, to handle the operational side. And I'm just going to be big picture marketing, do stuff like this, network with people like I've kind of been doing today here at Container Yard. And my long-term vision for Portal is we're going to do a couple of things inside our agency that's going to benefit the industry that I can't quite talk about yet that no one else has done from a marketing piece. And we are also going to do things other than insurance. And those two kind of go in together. So that's kind of my long-term vision for that. Right now, a couple of things we're doing, we're actually in the process of developing an Alexa skill, and it's probably 8 months to a year out, but it'll allow customers to basically get an insurance quote. Hey, Alexa, give me an insurance quote. Is that going to be a game changer?
Wow.
No, that's not going to be. It's not going to be a game changer. Where it is going to make a difference, though, is 5 years now when State Farm comes out with it, and my customers will say, "We've been doing that for 5 years."
Yeah.
It's also going to integrate with my CRM, my customer management system, and allow customers to, for example, hey, Alexa, send me my insurance ID cards. And Alexa, it sends a trigger to the CRM, and all the CRM does is just email it to the email address on file. So things like that are kind of cool. I mean, that's not going to like get me any clients, but it's one of those just added layers that's like, it's a separator.
It's that experience again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We use texting now. Believe it or not, there's a lot of insurance agents that don't use texting. Like, you would be shocked at how many insurance policies I write through text.
Really?
And I've had clients leave me, just since we opened, I've had clients leave me and then come back and say, it's just so much easier to text you. I have this company, I have to call them. They want me to come in and they want me to sit down and they want, like, I can just text you and you'll get it done. I'm like, that's exactly right. So,
and your market for that is growing every day.
Absolutely. So we have onboarding. We onboard all of our new clients, and it's a series of text messages and emails for 14 days. One of those texts is, what's your preferred method of contact? Now, there's going to be some skewed results because we are texting them. And I've been testing that for 2 years, even at my prior agency that I came from. And literally in 2 years, I've had exactly that many people, and I'm holding up a 0, say anything but text message. Wow. And I'm talking 60-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 50-year-olds, everybody's, I want to text.
I completely believe it because that's the reality. And in our profession, you can imagine that reality exists, but we as a profession don't acknowledge it.
I feel like I'm talking about myself too much. Sorry.
No, man, I love it.
But it's an example of how artificial intelligence, machine learning, bots, all those things will affect every aspect of the way we do business, including insurance. And people might not think about it, but just like having Alexa, give you a quote or send your insurance cards. all that stuff is just, it's coming.
And here's the thing: technology is not going to replace anybody but the C&D players.
Yeah.
A players are going to be the ones to adapt. And if you want to be an A player in your business when the technology disrupts it, you've got to embrace it.
That's a great point. And no matter what your business is, can't run from it. So
I sat last week in a presentation from the chairman of the board of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and also the CEO. And what you just said is the same thing they said to a room of 500 representatives of their governing council, trying to tell them that that's the case. Opportunity exists. Technology is eliminating functions that can be done better otherwise, and those of you who will adapt have nothing but tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. Just think about what we're doing right now 5 years ago, how much money it would cost for us to, not saying this doesn't cost a lot of money, but I was actually literally just having a conversation with somebody in the lobby is we need to try to, Hilton should have created Airbnb. Taxi companies should have had an app years ago.
Right.
Like, what happens is you get established and you got business coming in and you don't innovate.
We always did it that way. Yeah.
Yep. That's the death. But it's like, I had never ridden in a cab, an actual taxi before until last year. I'd always taken Uber. When I grew up in small town Alabama, we saw a taxi. What the heck is that? So I'd always done Uber, and me and my wife went to Vancouver, Canada. Of course, like everywhere, it's big time political, but gas prices are outrageous. And it was so freaking hard to get a taxi. And I'm like, now I see what they talk about with Uber, because it's like you're trying to wave them down, this, that, and the other. You get in there, the car stinks, the driver's rude to you, And
you got to either pay them in cash or get a credit card and get them to run it and give you. And
you have no idea what you're going to pay.
Right,
and that's like, we were talking to an Uber driver in New York when we went to see Gary, and the driver was like, "Look, I can tell y'all aren't from New York. Don't ride the taxis." Because we were stuck in traffic when he's like, it was $50, I think, from the airport to our hotel. He's like, "You're paying me $50 regardless of how long we sit in this traffic." He said, "If you're in a taxi, it's just sitting there running." And so he's like, don't take the taxis. Yeah.
As always, we could sit here and talk for another 2 hours. We don't have that time. I know you're on a tight time schedule to get somewhere. So just a couple of things that we like to ask. Other than the Insurance Guys podcast and playing above the line, obviously. Come on, those are obvious answers. Do you have a podcast or two that you can give, or a book, anything that's kind of made an impact on your life, your philosophy of business? And
man, I'm a reader. Honestly, I don't listen to a ton of podcasts. I barely listen to hours. I hear it live. It's hard to listen to yourself. It is. It is.
Yeah.
Although this Gary one, I think I listened to it for like the 6th time this morning because I've been pre-listening. We heavily edited it. But Jab, 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 Right Hook is really good. That's by Gary, and it's a social media book. And basically what it talks about is you need to provide value in what you bring to your audience, and those set up the right hooks, just like the boxer, the jab set up the right hooks. Another really good book is the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone.
Yep.
That's a really, really good book. I listen to personally the Joe Rogan podcast is great if you want entertainment, but I do get a lot out of that as far as they talk a lot about technology and stuff like that. And the Insurance Guys podcast, of course.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course. Yeah. Last question, and I noticed on your one of your hobbies is going to dinner with your wife after a long, hard day, and I can appreciate that. Anything that revolves around food is I'm all for that. So if you and your wife could go to dinner with any 2 dinner guests, living or not, from the past, famous person, whoever, somebody from your family, who would that be? Who are your dream dinner guests for you and your wife?
That is a very, very hard question. She would probably say her grandmother who's since passed, and I would probably say my grandfather who's since passed, honestly. There's no famous person that I'm like, I would really like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, maybe the guy who Steve Jobs started Apple, but like all I'd really want to know is like, where can I buy Apple stock in the 80s? Like I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like now if you talk about like going back in time, that's different. I would be the one who thought of Google,
Sure.
So, probably just some family members, but that's literally my favorite thing in the world to do is go to dinner with my wife.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's great.
And we don't get to do it enough, but
I understand. Nothing wrong with that. Great answer. Well, Brad, thanks for your time. Thanks for your insight. This has been absolutely enjoyable. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you guys having me. Thanks.
For your insurance needs, head to the website bradleyflowersinsurance.com or find links to Portal Insurance in our show notes. And, of course, if you enjoy our podcast, be sure to check out the Insurance Guys podcast on iTunes. Well, thanks for listening to our podcast today. To never miss an episode, subscribe to Playing Above the Line at iTunes and anywhere else you get your podcast. And be sure to leave us a rating. We'd love to know what you think about our show.
To contact us or to stay connected, follow us on social media at HBKCPAS on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.